sense that you need to hold your legislators accountable. Now when I say that, we've become such a brutal. There's so much polarity, and so like with that House Bill 258, we tabled it because there were some complications to it. And we were having a difficult time convincing the bill sponsor and the Montana Shooting Sports to address the problems we saw in it. And so we tabled it. Guess what? They woke right up and realized, oh my gosh, these conservatives are not just going to pass it. They're going to make darn sure it has the right stuff in it, because I'm not Nancy Pelosi. I'm not going to pass it and then see what's in it. You know, the whole point of that bill, Jim, was, okay, so we block guns from the feds, right? Well, then the feds could sit on the outside and say, okay, guess what? There's a sex trafficking ring running in Wyoming, and they're crossing your state border. And because you guys blocked us out from guns and they have guns, we're not gonna help that. All of a sudden, we become a sex trafficking state for our neighboring states because they know the feds aren't going to investigate us here. Same thing with the cartels. Same thing with problems coming across the border with Canada. So we have to be really careful that the language we put in these bills doesn't have unintended consequences. And that's one of the biggest reasons. But what brought me to that is I couldn't believe how many of my friends, I've been in this thing for a long time, and I have never voted against the Second Amendment, ever. I've always supported the right to keep and bear arms. Shall not be infringed, and shall not be infringed. But when we tabled that bill, a lot of people jumped right to, oh my God, you suck. I can't believe you did that. And that whole weekend, I ended up spending tons of phone calls, tons of emails, telling people, please don't throw us under the bus and compare us to national politics. You know, have faith in the folks who have always been faithful to you, and let us work through these issues. And so that's the second component, I would say, to your question for folks out of state. You're trying to work with people. People are flawed. People are humans. When you work with them, you will catch much more success with sugar than with vinegar. And so network, engage, encourage, edify. That's the way you get things done in government, not just ridicule and sharp words and anger. That does nothing to motivate an individual to work for you.
Yeah, sure. John, as we're talking, more questions are coming through on the text messages. So I just love that people's engagement, and they've got a lot of good questions, which to your point, Derek, they're ready and willing to get their feet going now. John, I've got a few questions from Sherry and Randy and Kyle, all local residents, asking about Biden's immigration reform, which he was pushing even yesterday, about changing those immigration laws, and us being a border state, that will affect us. And again, we talked about it. Most people just think about the Mexican border, but we've got a border here as well. What are we going to do to push back on those immigration laws, not only locally, but nationally?
Well, full disclosure, as Jim knows, as you know, and Derek knows, my wife is retired from the U.S. Border Patrol, so the feelings are strong about the necessity of protecting borders. We have a member of the Indian caucus in the House of Representatives that talks about if there's anybody that knows what happens to a society and a culture if you can't control your borders and you have unlimited immigrations, we Indians do. Okay, and definitively. We are pro-immigration, of course. There isn't an American, I don't think, there might be a few, of course, that doesn't believe in the necessity and the desirability of immigrants who want to come here and become Americans. And they want to go through the process, okay? I don't believe in the so-called salad bowl of a diversity. I am more of the idea that because to me, the so-called salad bowl of diversity leads to balkanization. And in the Balkans, they walk into the future looking backwards at 800-year-old grievances based on ethnic and religious differences. We don't want that here in America. And that's what the Democrats have been successful in putting together, is a coalition of people who have different grievances or perceived grievances. Okay, we need to be Americans. And so our immigration policy needs to be based on those people who want to come here in order to be an American, a believer in the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. So when we have a government, an administration, as we have with the Obama administration and now the Biden administration, that deliberately tries to circumvent the immigration laws of this country and allow large-scale numbers of people, to come in unhampered, okay, what can we do? Well, one thing we can do is we can prevent sanctuary cities from springing up or becoming a sanctuary state. We have done that here in Montana. Okay, we have done that, and we are going to install that in code. Okay, so that those who would, for whatever misguided purpose, attempt to destroy the fabric and culture of Montana society, we're going officially, we're not going to allow it to happen. The second thing we can do, of course, is, as we've referred to so many times, be engaged, be participatory, let people know what happens, and do not be silenced. Do not be silenced by the legacy drive-by media. And of course, with kudos to our recently departed Rush Limbaugh, the drive-by media is his patented expression, as well as "do not doubt me." That when people say no, stop, enough, and enough people do that, that's we will start to turn things around. Okay, every human being does not want to swim against the tide of their fellow people. But sometimes, and that's why we have profiles in courage, as John Kennedy called it, or that's why we outline true heroes, those people who are willing to stand up and point to the truths of life and the real values of what is necessary for America to succeed and survive. And so what can we do? More participation, more involvement, more stop, enough, no more. That's what we have to do.
And Jim, if I could add just one or two additional thoughts. Yeah. One of the things we need to do on the local level is make it really difficult to incentivize the illegals. In other words, make darn sure no employers are hiring illegals. That keeps them out. Make sure there's no programs that allow an illegal to eat, or, you can't set up these social programs, these safety nets for folks that are here illegally, totally for folks that are here legally. I understand that. And so we have to work like you look at that group out of Missoula, the Love Lives Here group. And the things they advocate in the Flathead, they want to go to Somalia and pick up 100 Somalis and bring them into the Flathead. Now, if you did that and they were all U.S. citizens by the legal process, then the last thing we need to do is Americanize those Somalis. And so when we do get legal immigrants into the Flathead or into Montana, what we need to do is engage them on the beauty and incredible nature of our Constitution, our God-given rights and freedoms, the benefit of all of us speaking one language. I mean, we need to Americanize the folks that are here legally, and reject the programs and plans that allow for a safety net for folks that are here illegally. If we do that, they're going to go to, think about it, Jim. If you're coming from the East Coast and you're an illegal and there's no programs to take care of you in Montana, where are you going to go? Keep heading west, because you'll find that in Washington State. Yeah.
Along those lines of, what's happening in our states and things that are completely unacceptable, in my opinion. Braxton had his law put in about Antifa being considered domestic terrorists. Any thoughts on that or expansion on that? Because I think it's wonderful. The day that he announced that bill, I watched the news, and Washington the night before was being attacked by Antifa downtown. It's so ironic. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Representative Mitchell's, it was a resolution, actually. It wasn't a bill to codify law or statute. It was a resolution declaring Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Okay. And of course, when you have a simple question, whether you're dealing with Antifa, whether you're dealing with Black Lives Matter people, or whether you're dealing with Democrats, you have to ask one simple question. Why do you stop believing what they say they want to do to you? Okay. When they tell you what they want to do to you, and they tell you again and again and again, and then they conduct themselves accordingly and engage in practices that try to accomplish those things, why do you not believe them? You should believe them. And therefore, since we have, in the case of Antifa, they have deliberately engaged in practices that incite violence. Now, last time I checked, that's what terrorists do. So consequently, then the resolution was, and of course, resolutions are really statements of opinion, and they have no codification of law or enforcement law mechanisms, of course, whatever. But he was absolutely right. The Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. And it doesn't matter what goal they claim they're working for. Social justice is that collective term that everyone always uses, but of course, no one can ever define it. And remember that the definition of social justice is provided for us in the Declaration of Independence, because right there, Thomas Jefferson told us what governments are supposed to do. Governments are instituted among men to protect the rights of people, to protect the rights of its citizens. Okay, and consequently, making a resolution, it is nothing more than a declaration. And of course, you would think that we were going to use it to engage in illegal or persecution, et cetera, and engage in those things that Antifa does. No, it does not. My understanding is, I think it was killed in committee. It was, I don't know, it's before the Justice Committee. So Representative Skees may be able to talk to that. So that's what young Representative Mitchell was interested in. And I'll say this about young Representative Mitchell: he's the second youngest member in the legislature at the moment. Okay, and like young people, Representative Mitchell is sometimes in awe of the fact that so many different people out there think that there are 5 sides to a triangle. Representative Mitchell looks at a triangle and says, "Oh, there's a triangle." Okay, and so why should we be trying to argue that there are 5 sides to a triangle when there are not? But so be it.
Yeah, thank you. Derek, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think what we need to be worried about nationally and having this reflected in Montana is you look at that rally of Trump supporters. The vast majority of that group was not violent, did not carry firearms, weren't wearing gas masks. They weren't there as an insurrection. And I know many of my friends that went there told me the whole story of what's going on. And to have the left now, the new narrative of the left is, you and I both know, all three of us understand, the left is going to want to solidify their ability to stay in power forever. That's what they want, because they're totalitarianisms. And so they're going to make white people illegal. They're going to make Trump support illegal. They're going to make us white supremacists. I mean, the new push for the left in order to make sure that they never have a Trump again is to become a one-party. They determine what is right and wrong. And so that's what we need to push back on. And we have Representative Dunwall has a resolution that basically goes after the white supremacists. So here we have both sides of the political spectrum are trying to find ways to continue to marginalize and label us and put us into groups that they can say are illegal or not illegal. You know what I mean? That's the real fear of this scenario. Now, I'm not saying Antifa is a bad thing. Antifa is a bad thing. Black lives matter. No. All lives matter. Those things are very real. We need to, you know what the really scary part of it is, Jim? In judiciary, I get hundreds of outreaches a day, easily. And a huge amount of those on my desk basically said there's no such thing as Antifa. It's a fabrication of the alt-right. And what are we doing wasting our time on that? Oh, my gosh. The fact that there is a plurality of human beings in the state of Montana that feel that way, that leads to a whole nother discussion that the information and truth is not getting out to the people of Montana. That, I think, is the true casualty of this whole situation.
Interesting. You know, it's amazing. I'm listening to both you speak on this as well as reading Mitchell's words. It almost feels surreal that this is the topic of discussion.
Yeah.
that we've come into a new age where the things that we're talking about that are commonplace